Welcome to Replenish, the atmosphere of discovery, where we discover the master's plan for our lives. Today's session is on disturbance. Today, we will be discussing disturbances. Okay, so any event, thing, person, thought, or feeling that disrupts and agitates any part of you, your purpose, or your environment is a disturbance. Disturbances promote confusion, panic, and unrest. But that confusion, panic, and unrest can cause you to challenge the unhealthy things that are functioning in your life, right? So a disturbance isn't always just a bad thing. You have to assess the disturbance to determine which it is, right? Is it to challenge you for the better, or is it to prevent and distract you from growing and reaching your full potential, right? Today, we're going to talk about the disturbances that are bad and what to do with them. Okay, so you have inner disturbances that promote confusion, turmoil, panic, and unrest, and also outward disturbances that promote confusion, turmoil, panic, and unrest. And when you feel these symptoms, address the source. Okay, is it coming from inside or outside? That's the first question, right? And sometimes you can't do anything about the outside disturbances, right? Because it's people doing things, it's things happening. Sometimes you can't do anything about the outside disturbances, but you have complete control over the inner disturbances, right? An internal disturbance can be a temporary or persistent disruption in your thinking, emotions, or behavior. An internal disturbance can be a temporary or persistent disruption in your thinking, emotions, or behavior. Those external disturbances should not have that power over you. Okay. Your response to any disturbance should be to put things in order and to preserve peace. That should be your response. That should be your immediate response to any disturbance. When there is a mental, emotional, or spiritual disturbance, there is an internal agitation, right? There's something happening on the inside that is causing an agitation. If there is a physical or tangible disturbance, that will be an external agitation. So disturbance is the essence of chaos. If you remember, we did a session on chaos. That was session 65. Chaos implies a complete lack of order, while a disturbance may be a temporary or a specific disruption of a thing that would normally be peaceful or balanced. So disturbance is the essence of chaos. It's the start of it. Like, it depends on what you do with it if it's going to turn into chaos, right? A disturbance doesn't necessarily mean that the situation is completely out of control or will never be controlled, right? But small, unprocessed disturbances can lead to large and unpredictable outcomes. Okay. Once a disturbance becomes chaotic, once a disturbance becomes toxic, it can become difficult to manage, right? So we want to catch those little small internal, especially those small internal disturbances, that unrest that we have, the confusion that might pop up. We want to address those immediately before we allow them to continue to build up and become toxic, right? And it don't just become toxic emotionally, it becomes toxic mentally, spiritually, and physically as well, right? So disturbances create conflict, right? Disturbances create tension, they create unpredictability. Disturbances create emotional outbursts, right? Mental anguish and pressure. Disturbances create irritability. Disturbances create spiritual warfare. Disturbances create misguided, exaggerated euphoria, right? Which is that intense excitement. And that is the excitement that can lead to substance abuse, to violent and impulsive behaviors. Disturbances can agitate mood disorders, cause anxiety, depression. Disturbances also cause you to have self-control difficulties, right? You start having a problem controlling yourself because things get out of order. So they'll create these things, right? and then promote them with that confusion, that panic, and that unrest. So all of these things that disturbances create, they'll start promoting it, making it bigger, right? With the confusion, the panic, and the unrest. So then you go from there and you get into the chaotic side of things, right? And chaos and toxicity becomes a characteristic and a mindset if you don't take care of those little disturbances, right? So now you see everything through that chaotic and toxic perspective. Everything has to be overwhelming. Everything has to be extra. Everything has to be hard. Common sense is born. Order is born, right? Stability is born because you see your future, you see your value, you see your relationships and your purpose through this toxic perspective. So if you ever thought, oh, I'm just going to ignore this thing that's bothering me. Oh, this little, it's the difference if it actually doesn't bother you and if it really does bother you and you just choose to ignore it, not address it. What's happening is it's building in the background, right? Don't allow disturbances to catch you off guard. They will happen continuously, daily, okay? And it's how you manage them that determines how much power they have over your life. Some of the ways that we see things now is because of something that disturbed us 5 years ago, right? That we have not dealt with, that we have not resolved. Okay. So understand that you will always have disturbances. There's always something's going to happen that's not going to go according to your plan. Something is going to get out of order, right? When disturbances ensue, the quickest blind reflex that we have is to allow ourselves to lose, right? Just immediately take the loss or give up that ability to stay in control of our thoughts, our feelings, and actions. That's the first reflex we have. Soon as something happened, okay, just give up, right? But if you can just as quickly resolve those thoughts, right? Let your resolve be just as quick as your give up. Then you can maintain your peace and balance, right? Soon as there is a disturbance, resolve it just as quick as you just like, oh, nothing ever works. Oh, no, I'm not doing it. Just as quick as you have that reflex to give up, to quit, to not do this thing, right? Be just as quick about resolving that thought about it. Okay. And so we must learn what is a priority. We talked about priorities in session 71, right? Once we mature, our priorities should change according to our evolution, right? And that includes our mental, emotional, physical, and financial interests, right? It's not just all mental. Yes, it's something that happens with your mind, right? But it doesn't just affect your mind. We should be evolving in every area. There should be growth mentally, emotionally. We should be learning how to manage things emotionally as we grow. Our emotional age should not still be operating at 10 years old. When we were younger, everything was based off what we saw. We took what we saw as truth at our level of understanding. Am I correct? As we grow, we begin to understand that the stuff we don't see, the stuff we don't hear, how people acted when we weren't there, says way more than what we see with these two eyes, right? So we should have learned by now not to focus so much on what is portrayed before our eyes because stuff be transforming, right? What you thought it was, it's not, okay? Who you thought they were, they're not, right? So when the disturbance arises, quickly shift the focus to your own thoughts, the internal agitation, right? Versus the external cause of it, okay? Because it gives you more mental energy to spend on regaining your balanced state of mind and emotion. Our mind can automatically use that energy up to go after the person or to focus on the outside circumstance, which leaves you nothing, right? It leaves nothing left for you to maintain the control. You need energy to have self-control, right? You need brain power to have self-control. You can cry later, you can scream later, but in that very moment, quickly decide that your priority is the most important thing. Again, priorities. That was session 71. So if you don't have priorities, or you struggle in creating priorities, go back to that session, right? You also can emotionally detach for a moment to collect yourself. Okay, stop bringing your emotions to every fight, to every conversation. It's not good to fight with your emotions. They make you swing and miss because your perception is off, right? When you're allowing your emotion to drive the conversation and not your mind, it's like swinging and missing. It's like you're drunk. Your perception is off. Even your thinking is impaired because you're allowing your emotions to rule. You start thinking you can do stuff that you physically can't do, right? Like picking up cars and running through walls and throwing dressers and TVs, right? You start thinking people would do stuff they won't do. Well, they say it because you're emotional, right? So this is how to handle disturbances in a way that grows you to your full potential. Okay, remember, disturbances, agitation, irritation, all of those things, disruption, that is the essence of chaos. If not dealt with, it will cause you to become toxic, right? And that toxicity will become a mindset. It will become a perspective that you view your value through. So if things ain't in an uproar, you feel unvalued, right? This is why some people thrive off those types of environments, because it has become a mindset, right? They see stability as boring. Okay, so how to handle disturbances. Number one, decide your priority. Is your priority maintaining balance in your life, or is it vengeance? Which one? You have to pick one. You can't have both. Okay, is it a sound mind or more turmoil? Right? Some of you have to change what matters to you because you like to get your lick back. You like to make a point. You like to prove yourself, right? If a point is worth more than your peace, you're only going to end up being a miserable point maker by yourself. Yeah, you made your point, but you're miserable, right? You only have to prove something because you don't really believe it. Okay. If you really and truly believed in who you are and what you are capable of, you could care less about proving a point or trying to fill in for God to get revenge on somebody, right? God doesn't take off. He doesn't need sick days. He don't sleep, right? Leave the vengeance up to him. And if you truly believe that God would handle it, you will stop desiring to get the revenge yourself, right? So now we got to think about what is it that we actually believe. Okay. Number two, change your perspective. We talked about perspectives in session 70. I think all the sessions in the 70s were like spot on, right? Change your perspective. Confront that mindset. Again, that was session 56, right? So that was before the one on perspective. The hardest part about changing your perspective and confronting your mindset is that feeling that you have that you're losing something, that you're going to lose, right? Denying yourself in order to change. Go ahead and accept it. You're going to feel like something is being pulled out of you, that you're going to feel like the thing that you think you need, like breath and blood, you're going to feel like that's been taken away from you. But changing your perspective doesn't change who you are, right? We think change is eliminating us in some way, right? We talked about addressing change in session 39. If you have a real problem with changing, period, you don't even care if it's for the better, go back to session 39 and learn how to address change, right? Because you have to change your perspective. Number three, build your emotional intelligence. Okay. Build your emotional intelligence. Processing disturbances quickly and thoroughly requires you to be emotionally aware and emotionally resilient. Okay. And that should help you manage and express your emotions, your goals, your progress, your failures, right? Without stripping you of your willpower. And that way your thinking can become long term instead of those short outbursts because you lack emotional awareness or emotional intelligence. Okay. When you are emotionally intelligent, you know how to manage your feelings and to control your thoughts. Emotionally, you are processing and releasing emotions you don't want influencing your life anymore, right? When you become emotional intelligent, you're processing that stuff, getting out what don't need to be there, keeping what needs to stay, right? You're choosing to obtain joy and peace without settling for the imitation, right? And when we ignore stuff, that's settling for the imitation, right? You're settling for a false peace. And all that stuff doing is building up until it has the perfect audience before it comes out. Why? Because it wants to be seen. It wants to be made famous. It wants to be public, right? That's why we have to learn to manage our emotions. When you are emotionally intelligent, you handle criticism better, okay? Criticism can be provoking. It can be triggering for some people, right? It can provoke jealousy, fear, rage, right? It can provoke anxieties. But even though criticism can be provoking, it shouldn't happen every single time you feel judged. Like these feelings shouldn't come up every single time you feel like someone is judging you. At some point, you should develop the emotional intelligence to navigate somebody's opinion of you without becoming unraveled, right? Somebody judging you is not always bad, okay? Criticism can also be constructive or instructive, right? It can build you up to be better and give you the instructions you need to do so, right? The way that a person might deliver the criticism may be bad, right? Maybe they don't use the right words, or maybe it's bad timing, but their perception, someone else's perception, can open your eyes to the things that you cannot see, right? Because it's you. So oftentimes criticism makes you feel as if you've done something wrong or that you are below somebody's standard, right? But being able to manage that feeling in order to determine if it may be true causes you to exercise your emotional intelligence, right? So even if somebody says something in a bad way, when you're emotionally intelligent, you look inside like, I wonder if that might be true. I wonder if that's what everybody else sees, right? So be aware that your feelings can direct your thoughts, but you should be directing your thoughts so that you don't get caught in your feelings, right? Your feelings can tell you what to think. They can, right? But you should be directing your thoughts, not your feelings, right? You don't want to stay stuck responding out of what you feel versus what is actually true. So remember, don't let your emotions come to every decision. Don't let them drive. It's like drunk driving. You are impaired. Your perspective is impaired. You get a DWE, driving while emotional, right? Number 4, transform. Transform. Okay. Challenge your belief system. This is how you transform. Those traditions, those cultural attitudes, right? Those family attitudes, the ideology that may have worked for your grandparents' generation and you're still sticking by it today. I'm not talking about the wisdom that should transcend from generation to generation, right? But those irrelevant racial societal rules that no longer apply to this dispensation, no longer apply to this time, right? Because things have changed. Some of those things you need to challenge, okay? Redefine and refine those beliefs, or let some stuff go that is not valuable or beneficial to where you are now. It's okay. Okay? You're not giving up on your history, your family history, if you don't do the exact same thing they did, the exact same way that they do it, right? Be receptive to once again allowing yourself to change. And you should be changing at every season of your life, not just how you think, but how you feel about different things. It should change, it should evolve. Things that is not serving your whole being. I mean your mind, your body, your soul, and your spirit. Change it. Be willing to change it if it's not serving you. It could have been just for that season, right? If a person or community can transform you into who they want you to be, you need to break that tie. It doesn't matter who it is. If that's not who you are, you need to break that tie. And these ties that you have to certain people and certain communities can become protected by strong emotions like love, lust, anger, fear. These are strong emotions, right? That can keep you bound, keep you trying to push against the change that you need in order to grow, in order to prosper, in order to be who you were called to be. Anything involving your heart or soul where it can break it or cause it pain is a tie. It doesn't matter if it's a person, it doesn't matter if it's a thing. People have soul ties to objects, to pieces of paper, to obituaries. Their soul is tied to that thing. And if you touch it, you might just die, right? Some of you can't transform because of those ties to your soul. Okay, so challenge your belief system. In order for you to transform, you got to refine some stuff, right? And number 5, be present. Be in the moment. Some people live only from memories, okay? They only love because of what used to be, okay? But they're not connected to the present, so they end up losing the future, right? They won't become what God has written about them, okay? You also have to know how to limit people's access to certain parts of you so that you can stay in the present. Some people that you're connected to only likes the past you, right? They don't like the present you, and the stuff you talking about your future, they sure don't like. Okay, and they will try to keep you back in that place. And what you're doing, you keep going back to the past to keep them in your life, right? Know how to limit people's access to certain parts of you so that you can stay fully present. That so that way you're not exposing yourself to these negative influences. When we know stuff is no good, why do we continue? I mean, I know why. It's because you're tied to it. It's a soul tie, right? But we continue to allow those who kick us down, not edify us, don't want to hear anything about goals, don't want to hear anything about purpose. Why? Right? What you allow to infiltrate any part of your being before you go somewhere or when you leave matters. Okay? Your journey provides a way for your past, your present, and your future to meet, right? Along that journey, you'll be able to talk about your past as a testimony, as a way to teach someone something, right? You learn from the past version of yourself, right? You assess the present version of yourself to protect and empower the future version, right? And so often we can focus more on past moments and possible future moments that we desire instead of being present in the moment, right? And I mean this in the sense of you're so focused on the past or you're so focused on planning the future that you're actually wasting time in the present, right? Be present. You learn from the past, right? You empower your future, but you don't live in the past. You live in the now, in the present, as you plan your future, right? So don't get so focused on either part that you're actually just wasting time right where you are. Time in itself can be infinite, right? However, the time you have for any given appointment, arrangement, or plan is not, right? We have a time limit, but time in itself is infinite, right? Focusing on how much time is left or how much time has passed can cause you to be in bondage to staying in a certain process, like never completing, you just staying in the process. You have to make sure that you are not bound to the process, but you're using the process to actually get to where you want to be, right? Some of you may be stagnant in the process because some stuff has disturbed you. You want to use the process to get to where you should be. And by should be, I'm referring to your predetermined place in history, right? For your future, not somebody else's place, right? We often get impatient because we're looking into other people's places, other people's destinations. And then some people can imply that you should be at a certain point, right? Because of society, community, and culture. You've made them an idol. So you put their standards, their solutions above God's predestined destination for you, right? And that increase in burdens that it causes you to bear will overwhelm you. It causes restlessness. And then later, it causes instability, right? Because you're trying to reach somebody else's perceived position for you. Okay. So disturbances do have the potential to be catalysts for growth, right? By allowing you to steward your thoughts, your emotions, and your behaviors better. But more often than not, they present challenges to our everyday way of life, right? So let's be intentional with our thinking surrounding those disturbing experiences. And when I say disturbances, these are the little things, right? So they're not the great big things that happen, right? Which you'll find a session in the list on YouTube under Replenish 3125 that can speak to those heavier situations. Okay, but today we're just talking about those little agitations, those disturbances. Okay, order and disorder can coexist, right? And even transition between each other, but don't let it overpower you. If you don't live by yourself, somebody else's disturbances can come into your space, but you don't let that overpower you. At your job, there's some stuff going crazy at the job. You don't let that overpower you, right? Small disturbances can have a large impact on your psychological, mental, emotional, spiritual well-being and behavior. It impacts you, right? So if something gets out of order and starts troubling you, focus inwardly first, right? Assess and then redirect. Don't just continue to let it keep going and going and going, right? So I want to reiterate to you, decide your priority. What's more important? Is your point more important? Right? Is getting revenge more important? Find out what's important. As soon as it hit, what's important? Okay? Change your perspective. See it from another point of view, right? Confront your mindset about it. And sometimes we won't confront our mindset until a disturbance happens. That's when we're like, oh, maybe I need to change the way that I think. Maybe I need to change the way that I look at stuff, right? Number 3, build your emotional intelligence, right? It's going to serve you well in this life, okay? Because we have them, but they should not rule us. Number 4, transform. You can't transform without challenging your belief system. How strong is that belief system and what's in that belief system, right? Some of those ideologies you got to get rid of. Okay, they worked in the 30s. Okay, it was about to be 2030 in 5 years. Okay, you have to transform, be willing to change. And number 5, be present in the moment. When a lot of times, and this is what happens, one little thing, one little disturbance, one little agitation, what do? We attach it to the past, right? And now that one little disturbance that could have been resolved just in a thinking process, like 2 seconds, we attach it to the past of something else. And now it's bigger because now it can attach to an emotion. Okay. And now we got reasons and backup because you have, you keep all of it You don't forget nothing, right? So that's why we should handle those little disturbances. And now that we know how to, right, let that reflex not be to give up. Your resolve should be just as quick as your give up. Okay, so if you've been the person that's just, oh, every time something happened, oh, I just quit. Not anymore. Let your reflex be to resolve that feeling. Take care of that thought. Okay, because if you don't take care of that thought that you're thinking, then you're gonna feel it. And if you keep feeling those feelings, you're gonna do it, right? And that can happen in like 5 seconds, right? You can think, let me throw this at them. Then you're gonna feel like throwing it at them, and then you're gonna throw it at them. That can happen in 5 seconds. So you got to be quick, right? Why? Wait, what? Throw what? I'm not. Wait, what is my priority? It's not to go to jail, right? What is your priority? Quickly, you have to be just as quick as your reflex is. Okay, and that's how you grow. And then before long, you're doing it without even thinking that you're doing it, right? So take care of those disturbances. Catch it at the thought. It has to be just as quick. That reflex has to be just as quick, right? So I hope that you all learned something today. I hope you are thinking about the disturbances. You might have a recurring disturbance that happens daily, in your life with your spouse, your children, your job, your purpose. You have disturbances as you're on this journey of purpose that come up and you just like, I quit, right? No, we're in it for the long run, right? Somebody has to do the work to go in and say, why does this bother me? Right? And if it is spiritual warfare, when you start asking why it's bothering me, why is this here, and you're about to get to the root, it's gonna leave because it can't be found out. Because once it's found out, then you can uproot it, you can cut it down, and you don't have to deal with it, right? So subscribe and share with somebody that is causing disturbances or can't handle disturbances, okay? And we all know those people, so share it as much as you can. See you all next Friday at 3 o'clock.